and Snellgrove McKerracher.
And I'm David McKerracher. You're listening to What's Right.
This is a very special episode because we don't have a guest. We've been boom, 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 guest. And now it's just the two of us. Whatever will we talk about?
Yeah, it's been a while since the two of us did an episode. I think there was the one we did, that was an update on Solitude Phase 2. And then more recently, I don't think there's been anything since then. And before that, it was like when we were driving up in the mountains, and we ended up talking about nature, nurture, natality, and regenerative ag. But that was a long time ago.
Yeah. So we've had a lot of guests on. Those conversations have been great. But What's Right started, I think our first episode was us reading a chapter of Case Against the Sexual Revolution by Louise Perry and talking about it, right?
Right.
Yeah, like with the intention of just reading things that are, well, not just reading, but talking about things that are maybe considered to be right-leaning. Just having conversations about what is right politically, what is right, what is good,
Ethically, morally.
And Dave and I, we come up with a lot of episode ideas all the time. We're like, oh, we should do an episode about this. We should do an episode about that. And we'll do episodes on those things eventually. We're busy, and like scheduling with someone else gets us to do a conversation. But what are we going to do today? Dave, what's going on right now?
I think we just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the thoughts we've had going around inside our heads. Some of the things that have come up in conversation. I know independence versus solitude is something I definitely want to touch on. I definitely want to touch on the Nick Land conversation, the comment section on the Malcolm Collins conversation, what it's been like writing essays while tying up tomatoes, the camping trip. We have an amazing puppy. We have not done a real episode to be like, hey, everybody, we're living on a farm now.
We live on a farm in North Idaho. We got 2 cats and a dog. Like, our life radically changed in the last few months compared to where we were living. 2 cats in an apartment in the city, working at the university, working at a theater. So I'm sure some people are watching, listening, and going, wow, what a radical turn these two made. And this has been in the plan for a long time, and it just, I think, happened a bit quicker than, and kind of all at once, faster than maybe we originally planned.
Well, part of the reason was Anne was going to be on the internship with my mom out at the McKerracher family farm while I was on tour with the boys. But then I basically had a conversation with Anne being like, we
had a really important conversation where the two of us got on the same wavelength, because I think we had been off the wavelength just with jobs and being busy.
It becomes really easy to fall off the wavelength when you're doing a lot, and we were both doing a ton.
Yeah.
And if you know me, or if you've been following TU for very long, you've probably seen I do a lot of stuff with a lot of people, and Anne was just getting left out of the loop on a lot of that stuff because she's working at the theater and nights, during the only time that we typically would have caught up on things and things like that. And I was just like, Anne, I really want you to consider going on this tour. I think it really matters. And anyway, she did. So long story short, the idea was we were all in on a particular business plan with TU. And I didn't like the fact that it even required a very serious business plan. I would like to do things in a little bit more loosey-goose kind of way and let it evolve. But instead, I had said, no, we really need to try to take what we've been doing and maximize it and get it to where we can see that it's a serious way forward with the current everything the way that it is. And we got to put everything we have into it together. And if we don't put everything we have into it together and really put our heads together and try to make it work, then if it doesn't work out, then we'll always think it was because we didn't go hard enough or we didn't really like both lean in and say, let's make this happen. Yeah. So we did. We tried to make it happen due to a variety of things, mostly probably unrelated to that. It just didn't really work out. Different people involved for different reasons. It didn't work out the way we thought. And that's neither here nor there, really. The point is that this whole year was dedicated to a particular plan. And then because of things changing outside of our powers, it means that like I've been all tied up in a particular mission, vision, plan, and then I had that fall out from under me. And it's like, yeah, we had a plan B and a plan C for like, well, what if it doesn't work out by the end of this year?
Yeah.
But there we were in April. And I was like, we're only 4 months in on this year and it's fallen out from under me. So like now what's going on? And the thing is we were moving to the farm. I was going to be doing TU full time under this TU maximalist approach. Exactly. But now I'm doing TU minimalism while simultaneously building a loft and working on the farm. And once the loft is a little bit more livable, because basically we're living in like this kind of mother-in-law suite loft that had a bedroom and a bathroom, and the rest of it was just like some siding and some insulation. And so after that's done, working on the studio. Yeah, the studio is a really big thing. We've already gotten like $3,500 towards it, which has helped me put in a road and clear the top and build the trusses, the materials, and paid for all of that. And we still have enough to keep moving, but we need more. And so there's a Zelle link barcode thing I hopefully will remember to put on this video. I'm trying to remember to put it on more things because, yeah, we can get zero interest loans from angel investors, and that's amazing to have that. But also, if you want to have your name on a plaque on the wall, if you really want to help out, if you want to buy his equipment, if you want to buy his labor, if you want to buy his actual construction materials, get on that. Now's the time. That'd be great. Oh, and on that note, we're also like in the middle of developing plans for the soft launch for the 3R retreat, which is those 3 R's are recollect, reground, reproject. And we can talk about that and why it's those 3 R's and not the 3 R's Anne put in the email that went out this morning. I saw those.
Okay, I copied that from a previous email that you wrote. So.
There's better R's. I found them while camping. I spent like 5 days thinking about it. Yeah, but no, I totally was using different R's.
Yeah.
But reprojection is not even a real word, but it is now, and I can talk about why. But I'll mostly be talking about that at our little retreat that'll be happening at the end of September. Yeah. But anyway, with all that said, Anne, what's it like living on a farm now? And more importantly, what's been on your mind?
Living on a farm has been, I guess I'll hold this, has been nice. It's busy. There are days where I'm out there till 7. That's rare, but it's definitely a lot of work. But I like the freedom that comes with this lifestyle, not really having to, and it's different because like my boss is my mother-in-law, and they're very flexible, just understanding that Theory Underground is a business, understanding that sometimes, we got to do stuff in the morning or hop out for a call, or hey, we have a doctor's appointment this day. So like the freedom to just not to slack off or be bad workers, but to have a life outside of this while still putting in the time to make this operation a success is amazing. Car. We're driving right now, and
If you couldn't tell.
if you couldn't tell, and people are making questionable decisions. Anyway,
Not me.
not Dave. Dave's a great driver, everyone. Having fresh food to just go out and harvest and treat like my little personal grocery store, be like, what am I gonna put in dinner tonight? I think maybe the last 5 meals I've made have had like 80% ingredients from the farm.
Yeah. And that salad you made was insane.
Oh my gosh, it's like snap pea, chili crisp, snap pea salad. I made a cucumber radish salad.
Oh, that was so good too.
I made garlic scape curry, strawberry crumb cake. Like, guys, I'm thriving. I'm in my element in terms of cooking, and like culinary. I think, like, there was a time when I was really considering what my path in life was, and there was this kind of more academic path. But I was at a point really looking into even like culinary school. I was working in a fancy restaurant. Like, I really have always loved kind of the culinary arts. And so, like, for some people in my life, they might see this, oh, you live on a farm now, as like a very radical move away from kind of this academic, intellectual track that I was on. But it makes sense to me because I've always loved the culinary arts. I've always loved cooking. My parents love cooking and baking. And so it just, like, makes sense that I'm on a farm where we're dealing with and growing, like, delicious, nutritious food, and thinking about how can we turn that into recipes, making recipe cards, how can we make value-added products. And so that's just exciting. But the part of the freedom that comes with this type of job, as well as other like manual labor type jobs, is getting to listen to books and podcasts. So I've been listening to a whole lot of books and podcasts. I actually just finished a book the other day called Domestic Extremist.
Oh yeah.
By an author with the pseudonym Peachy Keenan.
Yeah, she's the husband sexual. Is that right?
Husbosexual, identifies as a husbosexual, attracted to people who identify as her husband, which is currently only one person. She talked about that in the book, which was funny.
Yeah, I listened to like the first 5 minutes of it maybe before you got your Spotify back for me. And I remember she defines domestic extremist as being extreme about the domestic sphere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I thought that was really clever.
Yeah, it was definitely like kind of a pop book that just was mostly taking jabs at liberals that still had some interesting, like, maybe socioanalysis or sociological and anthropological interpretations of the things going on. But it was definitely one of those books that kind of, at one point I think I said to Dave, this book's kind of mean, but like it's true. Like, it's true. There was a lot of truth in maybe the snarkiness. And it's just a critique of, I think this maybe, we've been calling it, after talking to Malcolm Collins, the urban monoculture, right?
Right, the global urban
urban monoculture. Just the ideology that, like, some people, like in her book, she mostly blamed it all on feminism, which I think is a very simplistic view. I think the right has really, like, locked on to just feminism is the worst thing that's ever happened. And it's like, well, there's some truth in some of these, like, ideas that have fallen under feminism that I think have been more harmful than good. Like the idea that motherhood and the domestic sphere is actually just this terrible labor that is worthless, and that women need to get out into the workplace, or they need to be monetarily compensated for this work, rather than just, I don't know, having a society where one person can support the household and then women don't feel pressured to, like, go out and work 40 hours plus raise babies. Because most women don't want to be away from their newborn babies. A lot of women want to work, and it'd be nice to have a world. I think she talks about this. It's just, I think my own kind of view is it'd be great to have a world where women can have it all, do some work, and still be home with their kids. But our work-centric society forces women, out of the house, women and men, mothers and fathers, out of the house 9 to 5, 5 days a week, oftentimes more than that. Like your dad and I were just talking this morning about, how great would a world be where not only is there, like, I think the focus on the left is always childcare, universal childcare, extended maternity leave. Like having someone else take care of your kid, and then just removing the important role that women have always played in being caretakers, not just for their children, but like for their families. Like that's a really important personal thing that builds on these intergenerational relationships. And now we're like, oh, let's just outsource it to these underpaid, like either teenagers or minimum wage workers or immigrants.
Right. It reminds me of the Bernie Sanders interview that we all just listened to.
Yeah, on Joe Rogan.
Yeah, and how they kept circling back around the meaning crisis caused by automation, and what will we do when nobody has jobs, and how will they find meaning? And I'm just like, it's not how do you find meaning. The idea that people find meaning from their work is a stupid brainwashing sort of idea that comes from schooling. Meaning is objective. It exists in the real world. It comes from family ties. It comes from community. It comes from culture. It comes from having a canon. Meaning is an objectively out there thing that we can get oriented towards and then spend our lives enriching, right? We can become cultivated vis-a-vis that canon, that culture, and have real relationships with our family and our friends and our community, and do sports and art. And it's just like, Bernie's just like, oh yeah, it's a real problem, $1 trillion problem, yeah. And I'm just like, dude, is that really like the most you're able to say? You're like a new leftist. You should have at least read Andre Gore's. You should be able to speak to this. Come on.
Like there's no imagination, or maybe you want to call it sociological imagination, for a world outside of a work-centric society. I mean, even your mom this morning was just like, people need to work. The Bible says you gotta work. God says you gotta work. And I'm over here going, what's the Arbeit macht frei or whatever, work will set you free. Well, just like the fucking Nazis thought. So we're all, I think, brainwashed into just this work-centric world. Now, what I want to say really quick, and then I'll turn it over to you, is just, in a work-centric society where you have to work 40 hours a week, both people, it's just like, that's what happens. I feel like a true feminism or like woman-centered society would make workplaces baby-friendly. Like, that is not a talking point. That's not a thing that people think about. It's, we need childcare, we need to outsource this labor. It's like, fucking bring your newborn to, like, that's not ideal. You shouldn't be going into the office a week after you've had a baby, but you've got a 6-month-old. Why can't your 6-month-old be in the cubicle with you? So I've got thoughts on that. Like in Mexico, you go to these restaurants and these women are just wearing their babies. Like, because why not?
Those women are doing real essential kinds of work that actually people would do anyway, because it involves usually cooking, and that's just something that people typically don't just do for their family, but traditionally was done for the community, and so that would mean that like you have like community centers and public houses, and there's a lot more like epic meals being made by lots of different people, but it would involve a lot of women who want to do that kind of work. And yes, you can do that kind of work and have your baby with you, on you at the same time, as long as you're not working grueling hours. Yeah. And that's the thing about Mom, is like, she's partially right, because it's true, like people need meaningful work, but there's such a thing as inherently meaningful work, and then the brainwashed bullshit where you're telling yourself that you find meaning in a certain kind of work. And it's just like, no, there are objectively meaningful kinds of work. And then there's kinds of work where it's like, you're in an office. No, that's not a real kind of work. You're dealing with spreadsheets and quality assessments for, these Wall Street people. Like, this is not real work. And it's soul sucky, and you were brainwashed to go into it and to say that you find meaning in it just because it gives you enough money that you can go have your little shopping sprees.
Yeah, and European vacations, and be a dink, dual income, no kids, and girl boss your way up the corporate ladder, and whatever. So
On the feminism thing too, I just want to say, like, the vision of womanhood that is not in general one of motherhood is niche, capital driven fantasy that people get brainwashed into, and only a slice of humanity really goes for it, right? That's people who go to college who 10 years later are still doing the grind. And how many women 10 years after college are still doing the grind? And well, there's a percentage, and they totally can. The point is that it's not the norm. Motherhood is the norm. And the idea that you can juggle girl boss and motherhood is, first of all, fallacious, because you're going to neglect the kid, and you're also going to neglect the career. But also,
you're going to resent your kid too. Like, even if you do have a baby, that was a point that this book brought up, that after I thought about it, I went, oh no, this is so true. Like, even the women who have kids, if they've bought into this ideology that motherhood is like slavery, that it's too difficult, that it's not fulfilling, that a career is the ultimate fulfillment, it's like people go, oh, I love my kids, I couldn't imagine life without them, but blah blah XYZ. Or people who literally regret not having abortions, or have a little bit of like regret for having kids. I even hear like some of these people who are kind of bought into this ideology, this urban monoculturism, say shit like call their kids assholes and just like complain. Like, it's so hard. And that's not just talk about the people who like are just experience parenthood being difficult, which on all accounts it's not an easy thing, but I'm talking about just like the complaining about the kid's existence in the first place because it interrupted this ideal consumerist corporate careerist lifestyle that you used to have.
Yeah, and if you haven't heard that normalized yet, you haven't spent a lot of time in the college sectors of a blue city, and that's all I have to say. But where I was going with that is just to say that woman that's supposedly being centered, that's that childless average woman, because I really want to separate the idea of a woman who's childless and an average generalized childless woman. Like, there's a really big difference there.
Yeah.
If we're talking about a society that centers women and we're being realistic, then those will be mothers. But if we're going to be unrealistic and allow the professional managerial class to curate all of our media and our image of what's real for people, well, then maybe it's this childless woman. Anyway, but what kind of woman is that childless woman? This instrument of capital. What kind of woman is that? It's a fucking man. It's a woman who's been neutered. First, the man gets neutered by being turned into an independent individual by capital. Then the woman gets neutered by being turned into an independent individual instrument of capital, right?
Yeah. Like, nurture and natality are completely removed. And yeah, like any desire for, it's just hard to say, like, for children, because what do I know what women want? But then again, you look at, I don't know, the entire history of the human race, and like most women had children, and yeah, there's gonna be exceptions in women who can't have babies, and like that sucks. Get involved in your community and intergenerational connections other ways if that's your situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead, you've got these people who are choosing to not have kids, who are taking extreme measures, medically speaking, so that they never have kids, and then like talking shit on their friends that have kids, saying they don't like to be around their friends who have kids. These are the people who are mad when there's babies on planes. It's like, I'm sorry, you're not entitled to a child-free world.
Yeah, oh my God.
And then when you tell them, oh, I want to have a baby soon, and you're like younger than the age of 30 when you say that, they're like, Oh. Well, are you sure you've, had your, are you sure you don't want to get tied down? And so that is like where my kind of feminism, I don't fully denounce I name feminism. We're going into an Anne rant coming. You want to talk about feminism? This idea that women are just like so weak and sad that, once there's a baby, they can't do anything. Life is over. It's like, I'm sorry. Fucking moms are badass. Moms run the PTA. Moms make the clubs happen. Moms make sure the kids get to XYZ thing. But they also, moms can do a lot for themselves, too. I think we've been sold this idea that, once you're a mom, you're just a slave to other people.
Moms are the civic backbone of every society.
And that makes life...
Always have been.
Yes.
They always have been. I can't speak for societies where women have to wear burqas and aren't allowed to leave the kitchen or whatever. They're chained to the stove. But in the West, women have always been the civic backbone of society. Yeah. Moms specifically. Yeah.
So that is frustrating to me that this... First of all, I hear women say my body couldn't handle pregnancy. And not to be biological essentialist, but okay, yes it can. For all of history, the female body has been able to just fine give birth. And I personally see it as this beautiful magical thing. So unless you have some sort of medical, chronic, whatever, I'm sorry you have that. Yes, your body can handle it. So quit diminishing that awesome you just bring a life and into the world and push it out of your body. Well, that's fucking cool. That's badass. And then you feed that baby from your body, and that's literally the only food it needs.
Magic.
That's magical and badass. Yeah. Your life isn't over, and I'm just sick of this idea that it's you're weak, you're sad, you're pathetic, you're tied down, your life is over, you're a slave, you poor thing. It's shut up. Kids are so cool. Moms are so cool. Your life doesn't have to be over, and we need to stop promoting this idea that, it's so sad or you're so oppressed. Women who have 4 or 5 kids, oh my God, they've been brainwashed by some far-right conservative ideology.
Right, yeah, and if the left wants to give that to the right, I'm sure the right's going to be happy to take it. But that's a real question. Is that actually right? I don't know. But I know it is good. I know that it is good. You could say that it's good to not have kids. Okay, that might be good, depending on your situation. But it is good to have kids. Obviously, it's better to have them deliberately. It is better to live your life as though you are going to have them, so that you're not being surprised when you eventually have them, or you don't get surprised because you find yourself at the age of 33 going, you know what, wait a minute, kind of like me going, wait a minute, I actually do want to have kids, right? Because I almost got a vasectomy, right? And that's because I bought into this sort of ideology. And an ideology is a way that you see the world. It's a way that you interpret everything. But it's also not just what you see and what you interpret, but if we're thinking about being in the world in a Heideggerian sense, and I did want to kind of hone in on that because we're going to have a great conversation about that tomorrow morning. Being in the world, what is disclosed, right? What is disclosed for you includes or kind of determines or is determined by what is foreclosed, what you do not see. And my approach to life and the idea, this sort of global urban monoculture sort of life is a worldview that just completely brackets out new life and also old elders, people who are nearing their end. So being unto death and being unto birth, it just brackets you out into this sort of perpetual sort of teenage mindset where you're just trying to one up the last year of high school. And really, maybe not high school, but I have a hard time seeing a difference anymore between your typical 20 or 30 something person who's not serious about building an intergenerational legacy and a teenager. It's hard to see a difference. It's just like, oh yeah. It's just like, I'm sorry, you might not be a Disney adult, but yeah, you also are a Disney adult. Even if you're not going to Disneyland 10 times a year, you might as well be, because that's how you're living life as a tourist.
Yeah.
So, we're going to pause this.
We're going to pause and go eat Indian food.
Yeah, we'll be right back. You won't even notice that we're gone.
Hate to interrupt, but we would be remiss to not share an advertisement from our sponsors. And we're not sponsored by any corporate or state entities other than ourselves. So I'll just tell you a little bit about some of the past courses and the ongoing courses here at TU. Because if any of them sound exciting to you, well, you can access all of them by becoming a subscriber. That's right, subscribers make all of this possible. Subscribers get access to the course I taught on Martin Heidegger's Being and Time, as well as the course that I taught the first half of last year, Emmanuel Levinas's Totality and Infinity, the second half for which I will be teaching this winter. I've also taught critical media theory and critical doxology and time energy with my wife, Ann Snellgrove McKerracher, who is the co-host on What's Right. Also, you would get access to the course I taught at the university, 3 semesters worth, on Intro to Critical Social Theory and Socioanalysis. But also, we've had lots of other great professors teach Introduction to Marxism by Chris Catrone, Intro to Lacan via Seminar 11 with Todd McGowan, Introduction to Ivan Illich with Brian Weeks, The Clinical Structures of Psychoanalysis and Autism with Dr. Leon Brenner, the Michael Downs Seminar, Introduction to Slavoj Žižek, Introduction to Nick Land, and Žižek's For They Know Not What They Do, all taught by Michael Downs, as well as What is Sex? There was a collab that I did with Cadell Last, Theory 101, a collab I did with Hello Gorgias. And then also, of course, there's Carl Jaspers' Is the Idea of the University, PMC Consciousness and Ideology. These were early, very important courses that I taught with friends at TU back in 2023. And they remain important to this day. Every one of these courses comes out of an overarching research project. There's a real driving force, mission, and agenda to the research going on at TU, because we want to understand the situation for the sake of large-scale structural change focused on the good life. What does that actually mean? If you really want to go deep, obviously, these courses are something you could spend the better part of a year binging while at work. Ongoing courses that come out on a monthly basis are the Fundamental Problems and Core Concepts at TU with yours truly, also my seminar, Philosophy of Nature with Nina Power, the Benjamin Studebaker seminar, as well as his course, The 12 Political Theorists. We've got some really exciting stuff coming down the line. The only way to make this all possible and really deepen your knowledge and familiarity with all of these different things is to become a subscriber today at http://theoryunderground.com/subscribe. Thank you.
Okay, we're back.
Pew, pew, pew,
Pew, pew, pew, pew. Although for you, we never left. We had a delicious Indian feast with leftovers aplenty. We went and got some epic drone footage at the beach. And I got a pint of ice cream. And I'm going to eat a little bit of it once it melts.
Shout out to our patrons who make these special date night dinners possible. Also, that was Anne's first time flying a drone.
Yeah, it was fun.
She did a great job.
And scary. I have PTSD from the time we were like flying this drone over a small lake on a hike that we had been on, where the drone I think was kind of damaged.
Right, I had this drone that had been damaged for a little while because my boss backed his truck over the case. Yeah, it was a weird situation because I had all my stuff on the ground and he was up on the mountain. He wasn't supposed to be back
But instead, he came running down the mountain and jumped in the truck and then backed out really quickly and just ran my stuff over, including the drone. But anyway, all right, so bringing it back around, we were flying it over a lake. It was slightly damaged. But anyway, it was flying over the lake. And then all of a sudden,
the battery pack inside of it just pops out. The battery falls down to one side of the lake and the drone falls down to the other, and we just watch this drone just plummet into the lake, like randomly, and we were like, oh my gosh. And so Dave had to like borrow someone's goggles who was also up there and swim around, and you looked forever. And so anyways, flying the drone over this lake that we were just at, I was just like, like I had fear, but it was good. We got some cool shots. And that was fun.
Yeah, she got a good shot. So with all that said, we're coming back in on the topic of
being in the world.
Yeah, I was saying that being in the world, one of the things about it is we're not talking about a subject that has an interior life that is in relation to objects in an exterior world where knowledge becomes how that subject knows about nature. Right? We're talking instead about being in the world, which is the precondition of all that other stuff I just said, but also because it is the being in the world is the way that Dasein exists in the world. This means I'm thinking, do I really want to unpack all of this right now, all this Heideggerianese? Well, all we were saying before is just that we disclose the world. We disclose the world that we are in. And anything that is disclosed is at the same time bracketing out other stuff, right? And so we have our way of understanding the possibilities of our world that we have been thrown into. And then we project out onto those possibilities passively or actively. Heidegger uses the words inauthentically or authentically, but really you project onto the horizon of possibilities, right? And in doing so, you also are always already in certain kinds of moods, certain modes of attunement. And the thing is, we're also always in language. Right? And then that's the sort of ground of ideology and interpretation, and all of it at every level necessarily means certain things are being bracketed. So your mode of attunement or your mood that you are in is bracketing out other moods, right? If you are in a very fearful mood, that is bracketing out a loving mood. It is bracketing out any other kind of mood, right? And for Heidegger, what he calls angst, which is a little different than what we typically think of as angst, is the sort of authentic countermeasure to fear, right? So most people are in a state of fear, and that drives them to be superficially invested in all kinds of non-committally curious and ambiguous things, right? Or ambiguously interested in things, which is to say, you just don't ever really go that deep into things. Well, what he's calling angst is like really thinking about the fact that your time is finite, that we're not going to be here forever, that your projects can fall apart, that you might not be able to be what you currently are in a few years. If there was, say, a medical emergency, or the economy were to crash, or whatever. And so existential world collapse is something that sort of haunts our waking lives, and people either live in fear of that, and then the sort of opposite side of the coin from that fear that they live in is staying preoccupied and superficial, curiously, like, well, we just call it distraction. And of course, this is manifest today mostly with people scrolling on their phones, which is such a big problem that we're always talking about. Okay. Yeah, well, every one of these moods, every kind of interpretation or ideology
it always brackets stuff out. And what I was talking about is being this sort of teenage-minded 20 through 30-something. And what I was really honing in on there was the idea that, like, it's just me, that I'm independent, that it's me and my peers, that the social group that I can think of as my peers is really all that matters, that there is no intergenerationality, that there is no broader kind of community, that it's just like people like me at this age. And we were talking about dual income, no kids, dinks, and the sort of lifestyle tourism. Well, I think maybe it's worth saying, you know, you could be more of a traveler and you are deeply passionate about, say, rock climbing or something, and you're still a dink, right? And what makes it touristy is that you don't have a flesh and blood sacrificial stake in the future. The flesh and blood sacrificial stake in the future is the you that will outlive you, having you go beyond yourself, the you that is not you, the you that is transcending yourself. And of course, like, I think some people are going to be disgusted by the idea that your child is you, but of course also anybody who's disgusted by that hasn't really come to terms with the fact that you really are your parents. You really are your parents, and your kids will really be you. But it's like continental philosophy identity, right? A does not equal A, right? It is and is not. And so, you know, you are part of your parents and part of your grandparents. The parts of them live on in you and will be passed on by you, as long as you don't become, trigger warning, a genetic dead end. yeah, that's the meanness that Anne was referring to in that domestic extremist book. She said it's really mean, but like she uses that terminology. It's like, I've used that terminology before, never like in a way where I'm trying to say that a person who doesn't have kids can't have a meaningful life, but in a way where I'm saying, if you are literally going to be a genetic dead end, or at least you're planning on it, I mean, that's fine, but maybe you shouldn't be making decisions for everybody else, especially not for the future of everybody else, right? That's kind of where that idea comes from. But with all that said, Anne's been really enjoying this ice cream. I decided to do like a full-on, thing here so that she could get a few bites in, which is great. Right. I'd like to try a couple, but I want to try this. It kind of
needs to soften more. It's too hard.
Oh, it's too hard. Okay, but with that said, though, I want to give it an opportunity here, and while it melts, could you talk a little bit about what got you thinking about the difference between independence and solitude?
I'm trying to remember the exact moment, and maybe you even remember, but I think it was something in this book that I was listening to, where the author was talking about, like, spending all her time with kids. I know maybe this is separate, and I don't remember how I got to thinking about it. All of it. Yeah, what do you remember?
Because you just went on a trip, and then I went on a trip. I think that was also part of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think perhaps, like, people fear that when they have kids or have a family, they will lose the ability to be alone. And at the same time, I'm sure there are parents who get so caught up in being parents, in having a family, and in all that they forget to be alone. And I think there's a balance there's a balance in that, and I think it comes down to the importance of solitude rather than just alone time or independence. And it's something we've talked about a lot in our like critical media theory courses, this, solitude, solicitude, virtuous circle, where you just as a person, like even if you are part of a family, you're a mom, like your identity is wrapped up in this family unit, like you're still you still have this relationship with yourself. You're the person that you spend the most time with. Ideally, there's some sort of inner dialogue going on, or inner reflection, or reflection towards whether it's God or the universe or the good or whatever it might be. And so, like, as a parent, you still need solitude so that you can like have time for yourself. That's writing, journaling, praying, going on a walk by yourself, like having that genuine time with yourself so that you can be more present for the other people in your life. But then I think, this independence versus solitude, this idea that we need to be just independent all the time. It's like, well, that's a lie, that you get that you're gonna be independent your whole life. Like, of course, when you're an able-bodied 20 to 40 to 50 something year old with enough income to kind of do the things that you want to do, well then you get to be independent. But I think this idea of like the importance of alone time and self-care and solitude has turned into like this, I should just be independent. I just gotta take care of myself, being tied down to kids would be terrible. And so it's like a solitude is what everyone needs, but this idea, this false notion of independence, total and utter independence from other people. You are not dependent on others. It is you and you alone. Is not really a way that people have lived their lives until now-ish, like modernity, whenever we want to say that started.
Yeah, and the thing about solitude, too, that I want to say before I get to this distinction between solitude and independence is just that a lot of people have heard the term solitude put in a negative sense.
Solitary confinement in a prison.
Yeah, they think of it negatively, and then when you define it as a positive thing, they still don't get what you're saying. And it's like, normally we juxtapose it to loneliness and we say there's a difference between loneliness and solitude. And of course a person can use the word solitude to mean loneliness, but then you're not using the word the way that Hannah Arendt uses it. You're not using the word the way that Paul Tillich uses it. You're not using the word the way that Sherry Turkle uses it. You're really not using it in the sort of sense that Pascal is using it when he says that he thinks that so many of the problems in the world would be solved if people could learn how to sit with themselves in a room for a few hours, right? And that is what we're getting at with solitude, is like the ability to be with yourself, not as a sort of nerve-wracking or boredom-inducing or depressing or anxious sort of thing, but instead like it's a fullness and it's rewarding. And if you're not able to make that bridge, if you're not able to move over that bridge, well, then you're going to be crippled for life in a way that a lot of people who are genuinely handicapped themselves aren't going to have to worry about, because they might actually succeed in achieving solitude. But if you never learn how to achieve solitude, I mean, it doesn't matter what you're capable of, you're not really going to do anything worthwhile. Nobody who's done anything remarkable ever did that without learning how to be with themselves, find themselves,
and have that moral space open up, the space opened up by the question, is the life that I'm living when I'm out with other people, is that life one that I really want to be a part of, right? The possibility of rupture, of natality, which is to say breaking from the way things have been, the habituses you've acquired, and being able to do something new is in part conditioned by this space of solitude. But what I want to say is that solitude and solicitude being reciprocally determinative, like each kind of holding the other one in place, or feeding into the other one's a better way of saying it, like a cybernetic feedback loop, or a sort of dialectic. That is part of what I like so much about it, because solicitude's this genuine being with other people. Because you can also be lonely when you're with other people, right? You can be in this sort of falling state of mind of non-committal curiosity and idle chit-chat with other people who never really get clear on anything and have no stakes or commitments. And you're with other people, but it's hollow, it's worthless, it's empty. And so what I'm thinking a lot about here is just how solitude and solicitude being reciprocal, we don't typically think of individuality that way. There's a way where we could think about individuality being reciprocally determined by, I don't know what would be the term, dependence and interdependence, right? Like, I don't know if you think about us, self-help books, they talk about how you go from dependence to independence to interdependence. That's the 3 stages. I think that's in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, for instance. And it's just like, okay, well, I mean, that's overly simplistic. I think, though, that is kind of like the kind of stages of life that Nietzsche thinks about with the camel, the lion, the child, or when you have Kierkegaard thinking about these different stages of life. But what most people mean by independence, though, almost everything good about it is based in solitude, good things that come from solitude. Whereas almost everything bad that comes from it comes from the way that capital shatters our being in the world. Okay, and strips us down to these atomized subjects that are not dependent on anyone and at the same time have no real dependence, which is to say, at the same time, no real responsibilities. You're not responsible to anyone but yourself. So you think that you can be square with the world in a sort of sense, but the secret is that you are actually insanely dependent on the global economy. Yeah, you're insanely dependent on your job. You're insanely dependent on this career path you've been set, or that you've set yourself on, or that you are searching for. And the question is it sustainable beyond the lifespan of the current economy? If the current economy changes in radical ways, are you going to be okay? Will you still have other people in your life? And if your projects fall apart and you looked around, would you be alone? Right? And if so, is this really independence in the noble sense? And then we can go one step further and say, if you are like ruggedly independent, you're like proud of the fact that you are, the question is are you still able to get into solitude? And I think a lot of people who think that they are achieving solitude in a positive sense might actually just be playing video games or even reading great books, but just because they're enjoying their consumer pastime doesn't mean that they're actually achieving solitude in this more genuine sense that is supposed to enrich you and fortify you and give you a sort of direction so that you actually have something to contribute
in a state of solicitude, which is to say with other people, right? And so if you're just like super introverted, that's not necessarily solitude.
I think, yeah, capitalist consumerism plus this like independence, I think, has limited the possibility of what human beings used to be able to achieve in solitude. And I think solitude and time energy go hand in hand. Now, maybe I'm reaching, but like, if you are able to come to this like understanding of yourself that like music is what matters so deeply to you, and then hunker down and learn how to play music and create music and compose music that's going to inspire the people around you that you can play in your community, or even like, you just think about like the founding fathers. Think about Hamilton. I'm always thinking about Alexander Hamilton. Thanks, Lin-Manuel Miranda. But it's true. Like, I listened to Hamilton a lot this year because I worked backstage on the show for a couple weeks. And like, Hamilton's all about legacy. Like, what's the line in my shot? He just cares so much about his legacy and what he'll leave behind. And yes, he has kids, but it's more than that. And so he was just
kids. Yeah, they can progeny is what they cared about, but in a sort of way they're inspiring their posterity. They're leaving. Yeah, they're setting up their posterity and with something to get them off on the right foot, but also to be proud of, like a real legacy to be proud of.
Yeah, and so Hamilton's just like writing all the time.
I'll be right every second you're alive.
And it's like, you can't be writing all the time.
How do you write like you're running out of time?
If you don't have solitude, or the solitudes who have achieved like a sense of whatever, peace, calm, ideas, energy, inspiration that gets you to then write.
No,
So,
they
like,
totally have
writing
time energy.
for
Though, you're right.
yourself or writing for God maybe is more what falls into solitude. But then that solitude, like, you know, giving you time to be inspired plus time energy is like, now you're writing what did he write?
Oh my gosh, the articles of is it Federation?
Retired.
Oh no. It's late.
It's late.
It's not article, it's the article. Anyway.
Guys.
Oh no.
Where he wrote the other 51.
Hamilton
where he wrote the other 51.
The other 51.
Federalist Papers.
Thank you. The Federalist Papers.
Took a second.
Okay.
But yeah, like stuff like that comes from this care for intergenerationality, for leaving your kids, the world, the country, your nation.
Yeah,
your
he was not
community
just trying to impress his
better
peers. Yeah.
off than it was. Yeah. I don't remember. The phone light shined in my eye so bright that I wiped my
I keep trying to turn it off and then it keeps turning on and I can't get it off. And it's so distracting. I hate that my phone light will not stop turning on every time the phone moves. But anyway, we were gonna say something about the Nick Land interview. Basically, it was great. Lots of thoughts about it still. We nature, nurture, natality pilled and 3-pilled Nick Land. That was iconic. Malcolm Collins came on, and we have a lot more thoughts to come back to on that. He was a bit of a spaz in that interview, and it was really funny, I thought. But some people in the comments were like, and I get it.
Why didn't you ask harder questions? Wow, why are you platforming this guy?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, first of all, we don't do this unless you're a literal Nazi or a literal member of the KKK. Like, okay.
If we think you're interesting, we're gonna bring you on.
Yes. If you think you're interesting and like not an actually dangerous person, we'll have you on. Because we care about exploring novel ideas, and I think what the Collins do have going for them is that they are trying to tackle a very, very real issue that I think not enough people take seriously. It's something that's an issue that's definitely on my mind often, being just the population crisis and the fact that we're not having enough kids as a planet to replace basically the workforce. And it's like, AI will take over and then we won't all have to work. But it's like it's more complicated of an issue than that. And so they're proposing a solution, and they're taking this issue really seriously, which I admire, and bringing about novel ideas and novel concepts. And so it was really cool to have him on. They're like getting hit pieces written about them in the NYC, being called Nazis all the time. Like they're big names in this pro-natalist movement. So it was nice, that they could give us some time, or that Malcolm could. But
Totally.
But yeah, he's like so much energy.
He's a machine gun.
Yeah.
He's a meme gun. Which, has its pros and cons, and we could get into that, but I think we're about to close out.
Yeah. It's bedtime for us, clearly.
Yeah, go find some solitude. It'll better prepare
early.
you for solicitude.
If you can, go to bed early, wake up early. Waking up early is the best.
Yeah, we've been doing that recently. It's been really nice.
It's our life advice for the day.
It's good stuff.
But I'm
ready
loopy.
to fall over.
I know.
Or goodbye.
Goodbye. Like and subscribe.
Yeah. Okay.
Subscribers get access to all past courses at Theory Underground, as well as ongoing courses taught by David McKerracher, Benjamin Studebaker, and Nina Power. Subscribers also get access to monthly research seminars, and the higher tiers of involvement unlock discussions and one-on-one small group tutelage. So if you're like me and you're never a huge bookish kind of person, but somewhere along the way you got really into listening to educational materials, if you got really into listening to podcasts and then books at work, if you love going deep into ideas, but you're just not a traditional bookish kind of person, well, this is where the alliance between people like us and people who are more bookish and specialized are able to meet to work through these things and do so in defense of the human, in defense of our dignity, in defense of our common humanity and our intellectual integrity. This is not a place where we're going to kick you out because you're pro-life or pro-choice, or where you are an atheist or a agnostic or a Christian. But it is a place where you're expected to love one another regardless of such things, and to show up for people in your actual IRL real life communities regardless of such things. And if that is exciting for you, and if you're excited to learn about what this approach, this method, this school of thought has to offer, then I'm excited to meet you. Subscribe today. Thank you.